Megtooth sabers requires a lot of work on engineering, drilling, smoothing, tapping, setting, imagining, cutting, stripping, twisting, dipping, tin it, pin it, wire it, fire it, lock it, blast it, swing it, bash it. Megtooth sabers.
Bam, we're live. Hey gang, good to see y'all. Tonight we're going to be installing a Proffie 2.2. So Melissa, this is going to be very difficult for you to see even with screen magnification because we're going to be working with really small stuff. Yeah, we all can have that from time to time, Melissa. But at any rate, I'm going to get into installing this Saber. And really quick, I had something pop up today that kind of made me angry. And I want to talk to y'all about it. So, you know, I don't commission very many Sabers. A lot of them are for the 501st Legion. And I had a commission that I took reluctantly. And, you know, it takes removable 18650 batteries in it. And, you know, I suggested name brand and amp shutoff. And the guy that owns the Saber, he does that vaping. And he goes, oh yeah, that's just a vaping battery. And I'm like, no vaping batteries in the Saber. And I sent him the kind of batteries to buy. And he blew me off, and I figured he was going to put vaping batteries in the Saber. Well, lo and behold, the Saber comes back to me for repair, and when I open it, guess what I find in the Saber? A vaping battery. So I was a little pissed, to say the least. Also said vaping battery only had 2.59 volts in it and wasn't charged. And I put a normal battery in the Saber, and it appears to be functioning normally. And there's nothing wrong with it. Now, he may have a problem with his blade, but my guess is the battery got so low it couldn't even fire the NeoPixels, which is why you use the battery that I told you to use and not vaping batteries. But at any rate, let's get to installing this lightsaber. And we only have 2 viewers on right now. Maybe more will join in later, but we're going to get to installing this thing. So stand by. Mainly protected circuit batteries, Melissa. Vaping batteries are no good. So let me, before I ship this camera, let me send y'all to some other place. You aren't watching this. So I'll go Windows Share, and then we'll go to, I don't know. Maybe we'll look at the Crucible. See if we missed any posts. I'll put y'all on there while I'm changing camera angles. Uh-oh. Got a notification. Okay, we got another answer on that one. So let me move the camera, and now's when it's going to get precarious. Oh, let me try to get this wire where it's not going to be in our way. Just y'all stand by a second. I will get you on view here in a minute. And I'm trying to get the camera legs out of my way. So as we're installing this puppy, y'all will be able to see, and all will be well. So I need nippers, strippers, I need flux, get soldering iron going, get some flux over here, and I need this. Just stand by, I'll have y'all on the camera in a minute here where we're going to go to the bench. So everybody stand by. Bam. All right, we're on the bench. So what I have here is the Proffie board 2.2, and I'm going to remove the SD card from said Proffie board because we're going to be soldering on this thing tonight. And this is the board that's going in the Saber. I've already programmed this with a config, and you know, we'll have to go to the computer here in a minute to check the config on a few things because I don't remember everything that I did. But you know, we're going to be putting the main blade and the stock adapters on 2 and 3. I think we put my crystal chamber pixel on 6. And let's go see what we got. So we're going to make this happen on this Proffie board. So we're getting ready to go off to the races here. I need to get a resistor out. I didn't do that before the show. So what do we got here? That looks like a good resistor right there. Okay, so we got Max, we got Melissa, and that's pretty much it. So we don't have many viewers tonight. This is a custom Gary Morris hilt, Melissa, and I will show it probably at the end of the video when we get all this going. This is the inside of the hilt right here, and point out some things that I did for everybody. So I did add this, you know, multi-board adaptive chassis system in there and this piece of plastic across. I did that. I also added the battery cover back on. And, you know, everything's ready to go. Everything's ready to wire. And we just need to start wiring this puppy. I guess the first thing I need to do is start getting the wires that we need out and up through my chassis hole. So I'm going to remove all this tape we had holding the wires in. And, you know, I know right off the bat I'm going to need, I'm pretty sure we put this one on data 2, which is our stock pixel wire. And this is our brown wire from the stock pixels that controls the onboard data on those. And then I know I'm going to need, these are our switch wires. I know I'm going to need them, but we definitely need to pull our battery negative out of there so we can get it up through the hole where the Proffie board's going. And then I need to go ahead and free all of this on the back. So on the back side, y'all stand by once I get this tape off. Of course, my pixel just came out, right? That sucks. Well, that really sucks that my pixel came out. Might have to do some emergency engineering. Y'all stand by. That kind of is not good. Hopefully we'll get to installing here in a minute. Y'all just bear with me. I've got to do some emergency surgery that was unanticipated here to remove a wire. Alright. There is that. Now let me get that tightened back down. And then I'm probably going to have to do some emergency pixel surgery on that. So let me get out what I need there. Y'all stand by. We'll get this fixed. It'll be no problem. So while I'm waiting on all this, hey Kim Kanama, while I'm waiting on that to get fixed, let's go ahead and prep this Proffie board because I can do that while I'm waiting to do all this other stuff. So as y'all know, and I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see this, but I bridge FETs 2 and 3 because I run a single wire to FETs 2 and 3. This is FET 2, this is FET 3. Those control my negative power to my main blade, and it requires the use of 2 FETs. So I'm going to go ahead and bridge those, which you'll see here in just a second. And I'm going to zoom in so y'all can see it. So let me try to zoom it on in. I'm going to try to make it big enough so Melissa can see it. I'm going to zoom it on in even further. I think that's as far as I can go. But at any rate, we're getting ready to solder this pad right here. And let me get my iron out and clean my iron up, and then we'll have to re-butter my iron. And we'll get to rocking and rolling here. I am using rosin core. It has flux in the actual solder, and I use, I don't know, it's around 60-40. This is resin core, and I'm using 6337, and it's 0.56 millimeter in diameter, so it's pretty small stuff, but it does have a resin core in it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat the pad and the resistor, and then I'm going to come in with the solder. And just like that, we're good to go. So that is that. Now I'm going to cut the resistor. Let me get the board in here where you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm going to come in and cut the resistor, I don't know, about right there. And then I'll put that off to the side because I might be able to use that in some other project. Now I'm going to take this resistor that we've soldered there, and I'm going to route it into the LED number 2 hole, which I know this is kind of crazy with my shaky hands, but y'all just bear with me. And I'm going to pull that on up through there, and then you can see on the back side that I'm going to have that bridge, and I'll clean that bridge up and add some solder to that bridge too here in a bit. That'll give us some additional, but let's go ahead and solder LED 3 up now and complete this bridge of LEDs 2 and 3. Oh man, she really don't want to take solder. Trying to get my heat down a little bit lower on the pad. There we go. So now that completed that solder, and you guys can see I got a bunch of wire sticking up, so I'm going to go ahead and trim the excess off of there, and trim the excess off of there, and might need to clean that up a bit. I need to look at that under scope. I'll look at that under scope, but I think it's going to be okay. So now I'm going to come in on the back side, and I'm going to add some solder on the back side of this bridge. There. And then I'm going to add some solder there. And then more solder on the bridge. So there are LEDs 2 and 3 are bridged. So that's the prep work on the Proffie board. Let me look at that. I don't see anything there. I think we're okay. There is a little hair in there. That's not a hair of wire, it's just a hair. All right. Sweetness, we're in business. Yeah, Proffie is probably the most complicated board that's out there, Melissa. Sorry I'm not reading the chat on time. Well, the emergency surgery is I pulled out my pixel. So I got to reestablish my pixel back in the Hilt, and that's going to be kind of a disaster. So y'all just bear with me while I get this straightened out, because I'm not going to move the camera around to capture all this because it's just going to be crazy. But I got to get my pixel back down in there so I can get my wires routed. Oh, y'all just hang in there a minute. I'll be back with you here in a second. Gotta love doing live vids, because if anything can go wrong, it will. Okay. Let me try and secure our pixel back in there. And we'll see if that emergency surgery works. Hopefully it will. Yeah, it's okay. It's just my, my pixel came out, but it is what it is. We'll get it fixed right back up. It's just going to take a little bit here because I had to do something that I, normally don't do here, but E6000 didn't hold. Then I had a wire hung up. So y'all just bear with me. I'll get the hilt back under the camera here so you guys can see what's going on. And, we'll get this going. We'll get this back going. Oh, Lord. All right. Hopefully that'll hold. All right, so let me put the Proffie board to the side. Let me zoom back out. You guys can see I got a kill key in there. And hang on a second, because I'm going to bring a Saber stand in here. Let's bring a Saber stand in here to make this life a little bit easier. And hopefully this will move around a little bit less under the camera, and it'll hold it a little bit more securely. And you guys can see what we're working with here. So, all right. My speaker wires. I got all this crap in there now. Get that out of there. Speaker wires. I had them all twisted together nice and pretty. I got to get them into the chassis because we're going to need them. Those would be like the second and third wires we wire, so I got to get them into the soundboard slot. So there they are. And next I'm going to need our switch ground in there and our positive in there. I'm just trying to get all my wires in there where we need them. Trying to this is like where it's doing surgery, where I'm reaching into the Saber and pulling out guts. And then our positive wire, remember this is our pigtail from our positive merge that we did last week before we started some work on the config. And I'm going to go ahead and pull it up in there. And then I'm going to get my data and negative from, you know what, I'm probably going to leave the data and the negative from that NeoPixel out. Let's go to screen share really quick. And let's look at my config really quick. So let's go to screen share, and then we're going to go look at my config. Hey, Chad Osborne. Let's go look at my config file. So I'm going to open OS 5.9, go into the config folder, and this one is called Sing Samurai. And here's my config. So let me just see where we're hooking stuff up. So we know my main blade going to LED pins 2 and 3 uses data 1. My stock are going to data 2. And my crystal chambers going to data 3. And looks like it's going to power pin 4. So I went to power pin 4 on data 1. So now that I know that, I'm going to keep that handy, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out the old Proffie manual and wiring guide. let's pull up. Let's go to the internets, go to the webs. We'll go to Google. And if you guys ever can't find the stuff, I mean, I have all this on my web page, but I mean on my computer. But I'm just going to pull this up so we have it handy. So we are wiring a Proffie board. Now this is actually a 1.5. I need 2.2. I had my brain on something else. We need Proffie board 2.2. That's what we're wiring here tonight, and I'm bringing this out. So what we just did is we already soldered our jumper between LEDs 2 and 3 for our main blade, because I only use one negative 22 gauge wire on the main blade. LED 4 is going to be where our chamber pixel gets its negative from. And then LEDs 5 and 6 are blank, and LED 1 is blank, so we're not even using those. So I usually start wiring my boards down here. So if you can see, the first wire we come to is data 2. And data 2, if we look at my config file, is going to be our stock connector, data 2. So data 2 is going to get the brown wire from our stock connector. And then we come up here, and we don't have anything until we get to speakers. So we're going to wire data 2, and then our speakers, and then there's nothing on LED 6, but then we'll wire our aux onto this one. Our yellow wire goes onto this one. Nothing on LED 5. Then our crystal chamber negative wire on LED 4. Our main blade negative wire on LEDs 2 and 3, the junk we just did. Then our green wire, which is going to button 1. And then our black wire that feeds our crystal chamber goes on. Oh, no, it doesn't. It goes on LED 4, so LED 1 is blank. But then our white wire battery negative feed off the recharge port's going to this one. Our common switch ground's going to this one. Our main positive, which is our pigtail, is going to this one, battery positive. And then we come down here, and let's see what we have to wire on this side. Where is data 3? I know we're going to use data 1. Oh, so we are going to wire something here on data 3, which that's going to be our crystal chamber data, which is orange. So it looks like we're going to go brown, orange, blue, blue, and then yellow. So that's where we're at. So let me bring y'all back into the scene. And y'all stand by. And because I'm going to have to revert back to this in a second here. We'll get y'all back onto what we're working with here. So remember, I said the data 2 on this one. So actually it goes like this. Data 2, which is going to be here, is going to get the brown wire. Let me go back, and I'm not watching the chat. Yeah. So data 2 is going to go here to the second pin. So that's going to be the first wire we wire. So I always give a little bit of this slack, but you can see my data 2 wire goes into the stock connector there. And I'm going to give it a little bit of slack, but I don't want a whole lot of slack because I don't want to have to do massive cram foo down here. So I'm going to cut the wire about right there, which is near where the Proffie board is going to be resting. I'll get into the flow here in a minute. Started off tonight kind of crazy because I was mad about that battery, and I'm like, wow, why are you running an e-cig battery in the Saber I built you? That kind of pissed me off. And then you wonder why it doesn't work. It's a vaping battery. That's why it didn't work. Which isn't what I recommended. I even sent him the Illume website. He blew me off. When you put cheap batteries in lightsabers, you get cheap results. I don't know what to tell you. Except for, I advised him not to do it, and he did it anyway. It's kind of like, screw you, build my Saber and I'll decide what I do with it. Well, that's fine, but don't come crying to me when you break it. You know what I mean? That's kind of not very good. And I try to give, people the benefit of the doubt, but when you bring your Saber to me for repair and I crack it open and, you got a vaping battery in it, what do you expect me to think? So I'm going to do the birch trick trick there where I fold it over. And let me go back to Streamlabs here. Oh, Melissa. Yeah, Melissa, I mean, this is really designed, this video tonight is really designed more for people that are learning how to install Sabers. I don't know how accessible, and I know you use that quote a lot, how accessible these sites really are. But it's the main site for Proffie board. I don't know, you know, I know that everything's text on there and you can read it. So there is our stock pixels. Now next is going to be data 3, which data 3 is going to be our crystal chamber. It's this wire that's coming from our crystal chamber. So I'm going to have to get it routed in there. And I'm going to have to grab it with my tweezers. And data 3, let me go to screen share. And let's go back to the site. So data 3, speaker, and then skip 1, and then is data 3. So data 3 is right below our speaker. So that's button 3, which we're going to skip that. But right below button 3 is data 3, which we need data 3 because our hang on a minute, let's pull up my config. You can see that my crystal chamber, the single pixel, is hooked to data 3 right there in my config. So that's what we're doing. So let's go back to the scene and get back on there. All right, so I'm going to put my Proffie board about where it belongs. And then I know that, I'll get y'all zoomed in again here in a second. I know this is a speaker and this is a speaker. So this is the one we're skipping. So this data wire is going to go right below the 2.2 there. Speaker, skip 1, bam, data 2. I'm going to leave a little bit of slack, but not much, because I don't want, you know, a ton of cram foo underneath the lightsaber. And once I get this stripped and up in there, I'll zoom it in. I don't think I zoomed it in for the last solder, so I'll zoom y'all in for this one. I'm going to strip a little bit off of that, and then I get it away from the board before I tin it, because I don't want to be dripping, you know, solder inadvertently onto the board. And I'm going to put a little bit of flexures on there and bring my iron in, and we'll tin this wire. When you tin the wire, it keeps the wire together in one piece. You know, these stranded wires, they kind of like to fall apart. So I twist them and I tin them, and that makes everything a lot easier. And then I'm going to hold on to it with my hemostats, and I'm going to put it up through the hole. Now you can see, hang on a minute, let me show you all this, because this will be interesting, and I'll have to move this around where y'all can see it. So if you notice, you know, where I had my hemostats, I actually have some insulation sticking up through the hole, and that's not good. So stand by, let me re-grab that wire a little bit lower so insulation's not coming up through the hole, and then I'm going to bend that wire over, and now we're good. So we're working right here on this pad, right there, right below the 2.2. This is data 3. This is our crystal chamber NeoPixel data. That's where that single pixel that we wired gets its data from. And bada bing, we're good there. And I'm going to cut off our Jeff Birch method piece of wire. And now we're getting to our speakers. And I know the speakers are next. And I know this blue wire is our speaker wire. And I know I'm going to need about yay long on the speaker wire. And let me zoom y'all back out so I'm not killing you, so you guys can kind of see what I'm having to do here. Alright, so I'm going to get one speaker wire out, and I'm going to strip a little bit off of it, just a little bit, just like that. I'm going to twist it away from the board, and I'm going to dip it in a little bit of flux. And I'm going to tin this wire. Bada bing. Now I'm going to grab it right below where it's stripped with my hemostats, because I don't want that insulation going up into the board. And then I'm going to pull out this other speaker wire, and you can see it's like pulling out intestines and arteries. And I'm going to strip a little bit off of it, twist it, add a little bit of flux to that, and we'll tin it, and then we'll come grab that in a second. I'm just going to go ahead and tin both the speaker wires while we're at it. Okay. So both our speaker wires are tinned, and now we're going to put one up through the first speaker hole, and I'm going to bend it over, Jeff Birch method. And I'm going to clean off my soldering iron because we're coming to the board, and put a little bit of solder on my tip. And you know what, we'll zoom y'all in so you can see me coming in for the kill here. You can see my shaky hands. Shaky hands. Bada bing. Cut off the little bit that we bent over. And then let's go grab the other wire that we already tinned. And I'm going to grab it right below where we stripped it. It's coming up through the speaker hole. And we're going to bend it over, Jeff Birch method. Just like that. And we're going to come in for the kill on this one. Bada bing. So we're doing pretty good. Hey Cole Weathers, glad to see you here tonight. Now, the next wire I'm going to need is LED 4, which is going to be, let me zoom y'all out. So I know you guys can't see really good, but let me get something to point with. So this red wire here, this small red 30 gauge wire, and this black 30 gauge wire, and this orange 30 gauge wire are all coming from our crystal chamber NeoPixel that we wired last week. So basically, I need to bring in this black wire next. So this black wire is going to feed our NeoPixel that's in under the crystal chamber, and I'm going to have to thread it through here very carefully and grab it. This is where hemostats come in handy, because you can imagine trying to reach in there with your big gloppy hands like I got, and it's hard to grab those wires. And I'm going to bring it up, and it's going to go to LED 4, which is right there. And I'm going to confirm that on my config. So stand by one. Let's go to screen share, and let's go to my config again. And it looks like our crystal chamber LED, which it's 1 pixel on data 3 that we just soldered, and indeed it does go to power pin 4. So then we can go to Frederick's page, and you can see that LED 4 is right here, and that's where we're going to be soldering this black wire we just brought up. Ooh, and I need to do my button 2 before we do that. So let's go back to button 2, which is going to be my yellow wire. So we'll do my yellow wire, and then we'll do this black wire. So stand by, we'll get back to that. Oh yeah, I do use shared power pins, Kim, on my stock connector. I'll show you. I am using shared power pins on this Saber, but for my crystal chamber, I'm just using, this one's not really using up a lot of blades, Kim, so I'm able to get away with, you know, not totally using up all my LED pins. In fact, even when everything's wired, I still have 2 unused MOSFETs on this build. LEDs, well actually I have 3. I have LED 5, 6, and 1 that aren't used. So this is my yellow wire. This is my auxiliary switch wire from the second video in this series. I know the lightsaber is going to go about right there. So I know that wire needs to be about right there when I cut it. And you can see, you know, I've got quite a bit of scrap. So let me grab this wire now with my needle nose, and we'll strip it. And the further we get along, the less wire insanity we're dealing with So it's kind of insane right now because we're at the point where we're starting to work our way around the soundboard, and you know, it's a bit insane. And let's give that a little twist, a little tin, some solder. So this one is using shared power pins. I'll show you that in the config here in a second. So my stock connector is actually using shared power pins. So this is my auxiliary switch. I always make my auxiliary switch yellow, and my main switch is green, which the green wire you see over there is indeed my main switch. And we're going to put our auxiliary wire up through the hole there, and I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can watch it happen. So right now we're going to be soldering this right here. That's our auxiliary wire coming up through there. Here come the shaky hands. Let me clean off my soldering iron, put a little bit of fresh solder on my iron, come in for the kill. Bada bing, that's it. You don't want to stay on these pads too long. You know, you can really mess things up. All right, so now we need to get to LED 4. And this is the black wire from our single neopixel that's feeding the chamber. And I know it needs to be about yay long. That's going to leave some slack in it. Oh, of course, then it tucked back in there, didn't it? I'll be glad when we get the positive and negative wires out of the way because they are killing me. And I need to get y'all zoomed back out, so not that. Let's zoom you back out. Zoom you back out. So I'm going to strip this wire. And then I'm going to have to turn this Saber around because I don't like reaching over the soundboard with my soldering iron. So when I get to this point, typically after I round the bend, then I'll turn the Saber around so that the soundboard is closest to me, so I'm not having to reach over the soundboard with my soldering iron. So now I'm going to grab onto this, and actually I think I'm wanting to reroute that because I want that to go right here in LED 4, and I'll zoom in on that here in a second and point it out. This is our neopixel negative for the chamber on LED 4. I'm going to zoom y'all back in as we come in for the kill on this one. LED 4. And by the way, I do have the kill key in this Saber, so it does not have power right now. Hopefully. Might have been a good idea to check that before we did this, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, so now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this Saber around. I'm going to get some of these tools out of our way. I'll get y'all back in frame here in a second because we're getting ready to start getting into some business here. So I know I need to get my main neopixel data, which is this purple wire. I need to go ahead and get that into the chassis. So I'm going to get that on into the chassis where it needs to go. And this is my negative wire, which is already in the chassis. This is my battery negative, and I don't like where that's at because it got wrapped up. So we'll pull it out because it's going to be over here. And then I know I'm going to need this, stand by. I know I'm going to need this green wire. This is my main switch, because after we get the main pixel negative mounted on, which we haven't routed that wire yet, we're definitely going to need this green wire in the chassis. So let me grab that green wire and get it in the chassis. Let me see if I can route that better. It's all twisted around something in there. Stand by one. I'd rather that switch wire not be where it's at. Hang on a minute. I have to rethink that routing, because I want the routing to not look horrible. I mean, you know, the Saber owner is probably never going to see this, but the bottom line is that I don't want that routing to look like that. That's not where I wanted it. So I'm probably going to have to strip this wire, or not strip it, but I'm going to have to cut off the end I had stripped, because it was kind of like not allowing me to go where I wanted to go with it. And I need to go under that. There we go. I bet this is going to work out just fine. Yeah, that's where I wanted it. And then the next wire I'm going to need, let me get this back up here where you guys can see. This is my main NeoPixel negative. This big thick black wire. This is for my main blade. And I know I need to get it into the chassis where we're going to be wiring. So I'm going to pull it on through. With my hemostats. And bada bing. So that's the next wire to get soldered. And let me get these other wires out of the way. And we don't have many wires left here. But now I'm going to solder our main NeoPixel negative, which it's going to go on our FETs that I put a jumper in. I'm going to give it a little bit of slack to it, probably more than I need. And I'm going to go ahead and strip about the amount of wire off that'll cover our jumper. And I can clip this. Stand by. I got y'all zoomed in too far. I can probably clip this a little bit. I'm trying to get it where you guys can see it. Get a little bit of flexure there. This is going to be hard because we're doing this on the underside of the board. And this is the one that y'all kind of can't see because the camera's above and I really need the camera below to see this. But there, I pre-tinned the wire. Now, what I typically do is I'm going to grab onto this with my hemostats. And usually what I do is give it a bend like that so it matches where I need it to roll. And I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this or not. Probably not. And actually, you know what? I'm going to try to get this in a position where you guys can see what I'm doing here. But I'm going across those two pads with solder. This is my main NeoPixel negative. And let me get some solder on my iron. We've already pre-tinned this wire. We've already pre-tinned the pads. Now I want to get to line up like I want it, where it's hitting both pads. I don't know that I like that. Yeah, that wire is a little bit long, so I'm going to cut some off of it, so stand by. Let me desolder that. I'm going to cut some off of it. And I don't like how long that is, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut, I don't know, a millimeter off of it. And we're going to come back in here and we're going to try this again, because I don't want this wire touching nothing else. And there's going to be quite a few amps rolling through this wire. Get some solder on my iron here. Now I am happy with that. Oops, dang it. You guys didn't even see it. There it is right there. But it's on the underside. Try to get it where you can see it. This is our main NeoPixel negative right there we just soldered. Okay, that's the hardest solder of the whole install. Now, we're going to be rocking and rolling. So the soundboard's going to go about right there. Now we need this green wire, which is our main switch. We're going to cut it about yay long. Then we're going to grab that wire with our needle nose pliers. I'm going to strip this. This is 30. I use 30 on switches and single NeoPixels. And this is 30. Trying to get y'all back in frame there. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm paying more attention to what I'm doing than try to keep it in frame. But I'll try and keep these last several wires in frame so you guys can see it. And I'll try and zoom in on this solder. It's hard for me to zoom in on that other one. On the NeoPixel negative. Ugh. What just happened there? Alright, so there's the wire, and I'm going to bend it over, and then I'm going to zoom y'all in, and I'll move the Saber in, hopefully, so y'all can see where we're at. I'll point it out with the solder here in a second. Hey, Bobby Susanbach. Yeah, I mean, the hemostats really come in handy here. So this is the pad we're on. This is our main switch pad. This is our green wire. Oops, that needs to be cleaned off. And we'll put some fresh solder on there. It's good to keep your iron with fresh solder and clean. Kind of helps the solder to do that. And then come in with our nippers and clip off the excess there. And hit that again. Looks like it needs a little bit more solder in there, zoomed in. I want it round. I want it nice and round. Like that. Doesn't that look better? Bada bing. Alright, so next is our main battery negative. That's this big 22 gauge wire. Let me zoom out so you guys can see what's going on here. So our main battery negative, I know, goes to this line right here, and this is our main battery negative, which is this big beefy 22 gauge that's coming out of a recharge port. And I know it's going to go about right there. I'm going to leave just a hair of slack. I'm going to go ahead and cut the excess that I don't need off. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to strip it. Now I won't be able to fully assemble the Saber tonight, y'all, because I've got to glue the Proffie board down, and I'm not going to do that with hot glue. I'm doing it with E6000, just like I glued the plastic chassis in there. And, you know, that E6000 I'll have to set up for 24 hours before I can button the Saber up. But trust me, I will show the completed Saber hopefully next week, next Monday. All right. So now our main power, our main negative wire is in there, and I'm going to try to keep it in frame for you guys. Again, I'll show you with the solder where we're going. We're going right here. This is our main negative. This is the coming off the kill side of our recharge port, and we're going to rock and roll here. I'm putting heat on the pad and then adding the solder to the tip, and it flows onto the pad. That's all I'm doing there. Okay, so the next wire we're going to need is our common ground on the switches. So let me get the hemostats off here, zoom back out so you guys can see what I'm doing. This is our main common negative for both switches. And it's going to go, you know, when our Proffie board's installed, it's going to go about right there. I'm leaving a little bit of slack on it. So I'm going to cut it just above the board. Then I'm going to strip the wire off of this. This is 30 gauge. This is my common ground for both switches. If y'all remember from week 2 when we wired the switches, we wired 2 of the legs together, and this is the white wire that feeds both of those switches. Now, I'm going to grab it with the hemostats, and as Kim Kanama said, hemostats are invaluable when you're doing this stuff, holding your wires for you, especially like now when I'm filming. I mean, I do have helping hands, but these hemostats become, in effect, my helping hands when I'm having to film and I can't get my helping hands in here because of the tripod, because I'm filming, you know. I think we've been doing so much building on Megtooth Mondays. I think one of these Mondays I'm going to have to take a break and we'll just do a Saber talk. I wanted these things to be productive, but at the same time, it's stressful, Everybody's watching me mess up here. We'll see. Now, next is my main positive, and I don't like how that main positive is routed. Let me try and do something here to make that better. Now this is our pigtail that we soldered on, and this is our main NeoPixel data. And our main positive is going to come up right here, and it's 22 gauge, and I don't want to leave a whole lot of slack because it's hard to shove down in there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it about there. And then let's go ahead and strip this. This is 26 gauge. I'm pretty sure I used 26 gauge on this one. I did. So everybody asks, well, you have 22 negative feeding the board. Why don't you have 22 positive feeding the board? Remember, in a DC circuit, electricity flows from negative to positive. And on the Proffie board, the only positive is needed just to power the Proffie board. Now, you get full amp flow of the negatives going through the Proffie board, but a lot of those amps get scrubbed off by the blade when it's lit up. So you need very little positive to run the board. It just draws, I think half an amp or something like that. It just doesn't draw much electricity. Now, this is one where you don't want any, this is the precarious thing here, because let me get y'all zoomed in and hopefully where y'all can see this. Let me get y'all zoomed in here. And let me get the Saber where y'all need it to be so I can point something out. So our battery positive, which we're getting ready to solder, is right here. This is ground. This is battery negative, which needs more solder. You don't want any bridges between ground and battery positive. This would be bad. So this is a major area where we don't want bridges. Now these pads are right next to each other, so you kind of got to be careful. Let's add some more solder to my battery negative, shall we? Yeah, I like that better. You don't like that better? Now, we're going to add a little bit more solder to my tip after I cleaned it. And we're going to come in on the positive. Just like that. Now, let me trim that wire because there's quite a bit of wire sticking up there. And then I'll come back and reflow that a little bit. We'll see how we like it. I like it. Last wire, y'all. Moment of truth. Hero or zero? Who's placing bets? Who's placing bets? Am I a hero or a zero when we pull the kill key? Or do we have a mix? What's going to happen? What are their predictions? Hero or zero? This one needs to go to data 1. Shit, I can't remember which one's data 1. So, let's go back to Windows Share, no peek. And let's go look at the wiring diagram. Data 1 is the third one up, right here. Lord have mercy. COVID. Data 1's right there. So that's where we need to go. how do I get back to you guys? Oh. I'm running the stream here. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be a hero or a zero here, but we're fixing to find out. So data 1's the third one up, which this is our data for our main blade. So I know when the Proffie's installed, when I get the soundboard tucked in, she's going to be about right there. So I know this one needs to be cut about right there. Now I did use 26 for my main blade data. Ooh, and that piece of wire went down in there. I don't want that. Get out of there. And you don't need 26 for main blade data. I just like it because it's a stouter solder and it doesn't pull off the adapter easier. And sometimes what's happened is I get a Saber all wired up, and you know I get to the data wires and I yank them out of the adapter, you know, getting impatient to finish. And so I typically like using 26 because the wire's a little bit stronger than 30, and but you don't need 26. I mean, you could use 32 for data. So I'm going to pre-tin this data wire. Let me pull y'all out. Dang it. Let me pull y'all out here. You guys couldn't see that. We were zoomed in on the Proffie board. But now we're going to pre-tin this wire. And she's pre-tinned. Now I'm going to put this wire up through data 1, which is the third from the back, like we just looked at. And I'm going to Jeff Birch this thing. Just like that. And I'm going to turn this so y'all can hopefully see it. And let's zoom in for the last wire. And I gotta forget to put the, I can't forget to put the SD card in here to make sure that it works. Ooh, that's pretty. I like that. That'll work. Now let's cut that spare piece of wire off the side. Reflow this one a little bit, make it pretty. Bada bam. Pretty as you please. I like that. Okay. So basically, the Proffie is wired up. Now it'll, let me zoom out so you guys can see where it's going to go. Let me zoom out and you can see where we're going to go. So the Proffie board's going to rest right in there like that. So you can see there's not a whole lot of cram foo going on because I cut my wires all to length. So I should be able to fairly easily glue this Proffie board in place right there. That's going to be your resting position. You see it wants to spring up, and it wants to spring up because of, you know, all the wires that are beneath it. But I don't have a whole lot of cram foo going on, but I'm going to put in the SD card. I hope this is the SD card for this Saber. And then we need to pull the kill key. So let's turn off the lights. Oh, let's see if we have some joy. Well, the crystal chamber works. Oh. Motion gestures work. Test the aux button. You can see the crystal chambers flashing like I programmed. I'll show you that here in a second. I'll talk about the fonts that are on it next week.
I suggest you try it again, Luke.
This is Kyberphonics New Hope Training.
This time, let go your conscious self and act on instinct.
Let's see if multi-blast works. Alright, multi-blast works. Gesture off. Next
Seismic
preset.
charges.
I put the seismic charge blade on there. Next preset.
Are you a Jedi?
Case
I
6. From The Mandalorian. That's awesome.
Kylo Ren.
Now this is pod race.
Kylo Ren.
Oh, there's my pulsing fire blade. I need to put that on the other one too. Look at that pulsing fire blade in the crystal chamber.
Are you a Jedi?
I am.
Rainbow blade. I think that's a rainbow fire blade. Yeah, there's the normal rainbow blade. And then my battery meter, which is also showing in the stock connector. Which, why is that only got 4 LEDs going? Oh, because it's on battery meter. Yeah, all 16 LEDs are going when it's not in battery meter. Because it only shows on the end of the blade. That's why. So anyway, bam! Hero! It works. Let's put the kill key back in it until I can glue this together maybe tonight and solidify this up. And then let's put y'all back on the Proffie page that we had you guys on while I move the camera. I think I shared the... Let's share the window and then go to that page while I move the camera. And we get to show you guys this thing a little bit. So let's switch views, get back to scene. Celebrate good times. Come on. She works. So this is the, basically it's a Saber within a Saber. So I have to get the soundboard glued down, and then I will slide the top of this puppy on, and the bottom will go on, and I have them stored away somewhere safely. They're not anywhere close by. But what I'll do is next week, you know, I'll bring the Saber out and we'll show it off. But you've been along for the ride on 4 Megtooth Mondays. The last 4 Megtooth Mondays have been dedicated to the install of this lightsaber. So I'll neaten up the wires in here and try to route them nice and neat. And we'll finish putting this puppy together, and we'll hopefully be able to show it next week. But it all works. It's all functional. The config all works. It's awesome. Pretty happy with it. Brand new Proffie 2.2 install. And I'm really happy with it. You know what? You know what we need to do? We need to celebrate. So, cheers. Yeah. I wasn't a zero. I wasn't a zero. And, yay. I think that's the first live install that we've done that's actually worked. Y'all remember, I think the last live install we did was that Princess Ella Saber, and the LED negative came off. And I couldn't figure it out. And then I had to go live like 30 minutes after the live video ended. And bam, it's working. But, you know, all that's working now. Life is good. The crystal chamber's working. The config's working. And I kind of wanted to share the config with you guys tonight. I know we're coming up on an hour. But, you know, I wanted to share that with you. So let's go look at that. Yeah, I mean, this is a live install done on the last 4 Megtooth Mondays. So they're all labeled this Gary Morris custom install. And it's the last 4 Megtooth Mondays have all been about installing this Saber, the whole thing, including the stock connector. But let's go on to back to Windows Share. And I want to show you my config file. So let's go up to the top of my config file and let's explain some things. So you can see it's a lot more extensive than it was. So I've got the volume set at 2000. There's 3 blades, 2 buttons, 144 LEDs per strip. Now, you know I'm going to have to put the front on this Saber and test it to make sure a main blade works in tonight, but I don't have time to deal with all that because I'm going to have to tape the board down. Clashes at 1.9, audio, motion. Now, Kim Kanama was asking about shared power pins earlier, so you can see I have shared power pins, and I'll show you why here in a second. And then you can see all my battle mode stuff here, which I'm using SA2C's battle mode. This one doesn't have swing on because we're having some issues with swing on, but it does have twist on and thrust on and twist off. And then the lockup delay, I've got motion timeout and idle off time, so that crystal chamber will die, you know, after so many minutes. And it's also save state because everything's color changed. This section here is me adding in SA22C's buttons. They aren't on the OS download, his prop file, so you have to go get that off the Facebook groups, or Matt McGurry can email it to you. And then that first font was Orichi, and that is by Juan Sith. And you can see the blade style for it here. And then the next blade style is for my stock connector. And then the last blade style is for my crystal chamber, which all it does is it pulses between white and black at 5,000 milliseconds. That's preset number 1. The second one is Energy Blade by Kyberphonics. And you can see my 3 blades for that. And then A&H Training by Kyberphonics. And then Seismic by Brian Connor, with Brian Connor's like epically long, blade style in both the main blade and the stock connector. And then my my third blade style on that one is right there, which is very simple. It's it just pulses between his main blade color and black at 3,500 milliseconds. And then it just uses a simple blade style for when it's on. Then I had K-Sys Rescue, which this is a green color changing blade on the main blade, green color changing blade on the stock connector, and a green color changing blade on the crystal chamber. But when it's off, it pulses between green and black at 4,500 milliseconds. And then yada yada yada. You know, we can go on and on and on with the rest of the presets on the Saber, but we get down to the end. Now at the beginning, you remember we said shared power pins. If you look, this is my main blade in the blade configs down at the bottom. So my main blade is hooked on to data 1, color order is GRB, and it runs on power pins 2 and 3. But because I'm using a stock connector right here with 16 neopixels, it's also running off blade power pins 2 and 3. So I have to add the shared power pins in the top of my config. And it runs on data 2. That was the wire we put on data 2, the brown wire at the very beginning. And then lastly, my single neopixel that we put in the chamber, here it is, and it runs on data 3, and it gets power from blade power pin 4. And you saw us solder that on tonight, and that's it. That's my config file. That's the Saber. She works. It's pretty easy stuff. I'm glad that you learned something, Cole. I hope you can put it to use. And, as always, I'll go back and read let me get back to the scene here. And I'll try and get back. I always try to read the chat, once the video publishes, because I know, like a lot of times tonight when I'm doing a live video, I miss a lot of chat. I know Melissa was asking a lot of questions. And thank you guys if you were able to answer her. And how do you get the chamber to stay on when the blade is off? Well, Matthew Dye, I've spent the last 4 weeks doing videos on building lightsabers. So why don't next week we do that? We'll go into the blade style generator, and I'll show you how I take Fernando's blade styles and make them so that they have behavior when the lightsaber is off. And it's kind of simple. Stand by. Let me do something really quick. Let me grab a simple blade style. Let me go into here really quick. Like a New Hope training, I'll grab its blade style. Or no, you know what? I should do K-Sys Rescue probably. Yeah. Hang on a second, because I'm doing something for you guys. I'm not totally ignoring you. Let me copy this and let me go into screen share so you guys can see what I'm doing. Let's go into a Windows share and let's go get this. And I'll show you really quick. And we can go and cover this more in depth next week. I'm going to go to the style editor and I'll give you the address for this. Oh man, it's going to be painfully slow. And let me get rid of the blade that's in here, because we're going to put the blade I just grabbed from my config in here. This was the main blade on my and you got to hit submit once you paste it in. Submit. So this is my main blade that's on K-Sys Rescue. So it's just, you know, a green blade, but it's color changing. There's your clash, stab, blast, lockup. You can see how your lockup's going to look. It's localized. But at any rate, so that's the main blade, right? Now I'm going to power it off. Now, if you come down here on the main base layer, there's a color went off. And we're going to try to find it. And I've done this in other videos, but might as well answer the color tonight since you asked. I'm looking for it. I'll find it because I found it already. Usually it's at the end, but Fernando's blade styles are so complicated with so many layers that sometimes it's hard for me to find it, but I will find it. There we go. So right here at the bottom of the blade style, see where it says color went off? Well, it's black. Well, let's say I don't want it to be black. So we know this is a green blade. I want it to, and I'm going to go to Styles tab here. I want it to pulse, but I don't want it to pulse between blue and red. I want it to pulse between green and black. So between green and off, black is off. And let's say I don't want it to do this at 800 milliseconds. I want it to do it at 4,500 milliseconds. And then I'm going to submit that 4,500 milliseconds. And now let's watch. So now the Saber is off, but you can see even when it's off that it has this pulsing. So that's what I do. I just take a blade style and I give it off behavior. So you can see here, color went off. It's now pulsing between green and black at 4,500 seconds. You just have to find color went off on one of Fernando's blade styles. So hopefully that shared that. And, you know, you guys kind of understand that. So, bam. Little quick tutorial, quick and dirty on the, and we did it. But, bada bing. It's not that hard to do. You just have to learn how to read the blade styles. And, you know, I found it pretty quick right there. And you just have to find color went off. And instead of it being black, you want to add a style in there. Because everywhere you have a color in a style, you can add an effect. It's called layering. And there's a lot of layering in the blade effects on the Proffie OS. That's what makes Proffie such a powerful weapon with NeoPixels, is basically your imagination is unlimited. Whatever you can desire to do in a NeoPixel blade, Proffie can do it. Second to none. But at any rate, well, why don't we focus on that next week? So next week we'll do some Saber talk and, you know, keep me off the soldering bench where I'm not breathing in solder smoke. And, you know, we'll do some stuff in the blade style editor and we'll chat about lightsabers and catch up on everybody where they're at. Because I miss chatting with you guys. But, you know, again, every week y'all tune in. I appreciate you tuning in more than you know. And, you know, I have a lot of fun making these videos. I hope they help somebody. And if we help somebody and I can help somebody get a Saber together, then bam, you know, mission accomplished. I'm paying it forward. Oh, yeah. This is an old one. I'm actually trying different companies to make hoodies so I can sell them on YouTube and t-shirts. But one company, I like this company, but I didn't like this logo because it's messed up. But I did get another one made, and I really liked how they printed the logo, but after 3 washes, the logo was all gone. So at any rate, wow, we've been on, I read something about your switch came off, Max. You know, it sounds like maybe the chassis was too tight in there. That's always a problem. You know, I covered that on the Princess Ella build on video number 1 when we were building Ella's Saber, because it had those switches with plungers. And, you know, I had to size the switches so they got inside the chassis. But, yeah, I mean, those are normal frustrations. I have low profile switches, which we can talk about and show next week too. So just plan on next week just having a general Facebook deal. And you know, y'all make sure you're running good batteries in your lightsabers. That's like rule number one. And, you know, don't use cheap e-cig batteries in your lightsabers. Use a protected circuit battery that can handle a 15 amp discharge rate, and you'll be golden. That kind of distracted me at the beginning of the video tonight, because when I found that vaping battery in the lightsaber that I had built, I was pretty pissed. Especially when I sent him the correct battery in it and told him which batteries to buy, gave him links, and, you know, he put those batteries in it. Kind of pissed me off. Adrian, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm glad you're building sabers. That's awesome. Max has almost got one together, and, you know, we're anxiously awaiting Max to fire it up, because I'm telling you, Max, once you get over that hump and stop procrastinating and make it happen, and you light up your lightsaber, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong, and Max is going to be like the go-to guy in Australia. He's just got to get over this last little hump that he's on, and he's going to be killing it down in Sydney. Sydney. Sorry, Max, I misspelled Sydney the other day. But anyway, that's enough for tonight. The Saber works. I'll bring it on next week, and we'll show you the finished hilt next week. And we'll be, oh, you know what? I'm not going to be on next week. I've got to teach at night next week. So we're going to miss next week, and we'll resume. What is it going to be? Let's see. What's the date going to be? I won't see you guys again until September the 6th. September the 6th. Cole's 20 sabers deep. That's awesome. That's great, Cole. So we'll see you guys on September the 6th for the next Megtooth Monday Live. I'll show you this saber that we built tonight when it's completed. And, you know, we'll do some general saber talk and maybe talk about the blade style editor a little bit and have some fun where I can keep up with the chat and talk to you guys, because I miss chatting with you guys. That's the bad part about doing these videos, is being buried in the soldering station and not being able to see the chat, because I know you guys say some funny stuff all the way through there. But we'll see you on September the 6th. And remember, hashtag nerd up. We didn't write that tonight. Let's do it. Let's do that. September the 6th is a holiday. What is that, Labor Day? Well, I'm not going to be doing any labor, so we're still honoring Labor Day. We're just going to be having fun. I'm never off on holidays anyway. That's why I don't know when holidays are at. Nerd up. And what hashtag nerd up means, for those that don't know Jeff Birch or never knew him, Jeff was a pretty big guy in the saber community. He ran Hexac Custom Sabers. And, you know, hashtag nerd up was something that he started, trying to get people to be nice to each other on the internet and try to be nice to one another and help everyone out. And Kim Kanama, I owe you a gazillion. We'll have to do something with your PCBs. Kim's doing some crazy work with the PCBs. He showed me a preview of something that he hadn't gone public with yet. Oh my God. It's awesome. And not only that, Kim did me a big favor too. So, you know, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody tuning in. And we'll see you on September the 6th on Labor Day. For those of you that can make it. If you can't, you can watch the rerun, because they get posted in perpetuity. So, as always, may the Force be with you, or the dark side, as it were. Peace out. We'll see you guys on the 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now. Later, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, as usual. I really appreciate y'all tuning in on my channel. And as always,